Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number BB5080-456N-600. This is a ball bearing 5-knuckle full mortise wide throw steel base, 4.5 by 6, non-removable pin hinge prime coat. This is an uncommon hinge to sell because of the confluence of all of the things that have been done to this hinge. So let's dissect the part number. First of all, the BB stands for ball bearing. On a standard weight 5-knuckle hinge, it will have 2 bearing packets. You can see here and here. So the 50 part of the part number, we talked about the BB being your bearing packets. The 50 part of the part number means that it is a standard weight and full mortise hinge. You can tell that it's a full mortise hinge because of the swag on the hinge leaves. That when the hinge leaves are brought parallel, meaning like the door is closed, you can see that they're intended to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and to the frame as well. So that would be a full mortise hinge. The 80 means a couple of things. First of all, the 8 means that it's a 5/8 radius versus a square corner, which is far more common, or a 1/4 inch radius, which is equally uncommon, like the 80 5/8 radius. And this would be used by someone who is installing this typically onto a residential application that would have a wood frame and a wood door. You're going to see 5/8 radius used on wood door and wood frame applications because it's easier for the manufacturer to make that based on tooling and the amount of labor. So that's why 5/8 radius is common. They'll use an 1.25" diameter router bit, which allows a very efficient amount of work to remove the wood because your bit is so wide you don't have to go back and forth several times. But the net effect is it leaves a 5/8 radius because then they don't go back and square that corner. So that's why you'd see a 5/8 radius, at least in my opinion. In machinery, large door machining tools, tools that cost tens of thousands of dollars, they're set up with 5/8 bits to keep the line rolling as quickly as possible. The 0 means it's a steel base hinge, which is proven by that magnet. The next part of the part number is 4, 5, 6. That means that this hinge is specifically 4.5 inches tall, and 6 inch wide. Okay, the height comes first on this type of hinge, so you would call it 4.5 by 6. It's not a 6 inch hinge, it's 4.5. It goes counter to how doors are. Doors are typically the width first and height second. Hinges are the opposite in almost all instances. So 4.5 tall by 6 wide. And why you're going to use a wide throw hinge is going to be primarily because a couple of reasons. You've got a situation where the lesser of the two common instances is where the door is physically set deeper into the frame than standard. You would have, if you notice, if you take your hand and run it across the face of the door and the frame on the pull side, the door is not flush. It's actually inset a little bit, typically about 1/8 of an inch. Well, there are instances when the door is set in inches into the frame, and where I've seen this is in Florida, in turn-of-the-century homes, turn-of-the-century, last century, where the 3-story homes have wall thicknesses on the first floor of 18 inches. Those doors I've seen set in the center of those frames, and the wide throw hinge that they have they're just gigantic. Also, the old Capitol building in Iowa City, Iowa is a situation just like that. Doors set in to the frames and they require wide throw hinges. The second more common situation is that you've got exterior doors or a door that swings out and there's treatment to the wall, like shutters or brick mold or casing, something attached to the wall that causes a conflict between the axis of pivoting and allowing the door to get out and around the thicker than standard wood trim that's outside, or maybe shutters or anything, or it could be a concrete wall. You know, your frame could be, you could have an 8-inch wall but a 5-inch frame and it's set in, and now your doors, they'll open to 90 degrees and then they'll hit the corner of the wall. But what if you want it to open to a theoretical 180 degrees? Well, you need to shift the axis of pivoting from where it would normally be out further. So if this is a 4.5-inch hinge and a standard is 4.5, and you go to a 6-inch hinge, you're picking up an additional 3/4 inch of offset to the axis of pivoting. That allows an 1.5 inch greater amount of clearance when the hinge is open, okay, because you're doubling that amount of offset of the axis of pivoting. If you have any questions on those applications, feel free to reach out. I've also seen hinges like this installed in the lighthouse, the Ponce de Leon lighthouse in Florida, might be Port Orange, somewhere near there. The original lighthouse building has windows and then shutters on the outside, and being on the Florida coast, operating shutters are required there, obviously, but the windows need to open. And when the building was built, there was no air conditioning, naturally. So those windows have wide throw hinges so that they can get out, open, and around the shutters to operate correctly. Now, they're not wide throw hinges like this, like in a modern sense. They're Parliament hinges. But Parliament hinges are, in effect, wide throw hinges. Now, moving on. The N part of the part number means that it's a non-removable pin. You can see a black little speck there. Well, that black speck is a black steel set screw that's drilled and tapped into the barrel. The pin has a groove cut in it that when you seat the set screw, it seats into the groove cut in the pin, making that pin all but impossible to drive out when it's set. I've tried to do it. It's not the way a thief is going to try to get in, is the bottom line. It's a very effective way of keeping the pin in the barrel. When you have an exterior door that swings out, you're going to want a non-removable pin. Hinge is the bottom line. It would be irresponsible not to have it, in my opinion, because that pin can be easily driven out from the hole here in the tip. Easily driven out. To drive it out, when you need to, you just loosen that pin, which of course you can't get to unless the door is open. There are other options on the security pin. We'll talk about that in a moment. The -600 means it's in a prime coat finish. This would be a finish that is intended to be painted. Now, variations on this. Oh, you know, before we talk about that, there's a link below this video to the cut sheet, which shows everything important dimensionally about the hinge, in particular the template pattern of the holes for the screws. This is called template pattern, which is synonymous with the standard pattern that would be used typically on hinges. It's like an industry standard. If it's called template, it's going to have these same dimensions for a 4.5-inch hinge. Now, from that cut sheet, we're going to start talking about other options. You see from the column there, you've got steel base hinges, you've got brass and bronze base hinges, depending on the color, and then stainless steel. So you can get the base material in 3 different options. You can get plain bearing, which would be a part number without the BB. You can get, obviously, the BB, the ball bearing, or the LB, the lube bearing, which is like a maintenance-free, concealed sort of bearing construction proprietary to Bommer. The part numbers change when you've got steel, brass or bronze, and stainless. You can see how that digit changes in the part number. This cut sheet also refers to part numbers that start with an 8. That would be a 3-knuckle hinge, and all those options. And then, of course, you've got all those different sizes that are listed there and giving you the important dimensions that you would need to know for the A dimension. Also, what's on there we've not discussed yet, a standard weight hinge for a 4.5-inch is going to be 134 thousandths thick. That would be typical for this. Obviously, all different sizes are made, heights with combinations. Within reason, I think Bommer, the largest they'll get to is 5x8, and the smallest about 3.5x5. Not in theory, in reality, any size is indeed possible. They become orders of magnitude more expensive. there is no direct correlation between size and cost when it gets to custom material. Moving forward, the finish, you can get this in all of the common architectural finishes, and Bommer will even special make order for you the less common ones. You know, polished bronze, you know, things of that nature. And that covers pretty much everything that I'd like to discuss about this. If you have any questions about this, something that I've not covered in this 11 minutes, by all means, feel free to reach out to us. Bommer is a full-line manufacturer of all things commercial hinge related, and in my opinion, they are my go-to company for items like this. Very good technical customer service people, and the technical department there is even better in terms of technical questions. Predictable, reliable lead times, you know, great utility per dollar. The last thing I'd like to point out is the Bommer logo. Right above it, it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. Screws are included in a complimentary finish, all wood screws, all metal screws. If you have any questions on this or any other Bommer item, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.